Hey, tootRN fam. Here's another question that was sent to me from one of my students. And I know I say this all the time. I love questions, right? Every question's good, but this question's really good because unlike other questions that we've done recently, this question feels like when you're looking at it, it's really rooted largely in knowledge. Like, hey, do I know this thing or don't I know this thing? So I thought it would be a really good opportunity to share this with everybody to show you that even in the instance that you're reading a question, you feel like, I have no idea what the heck this is or what this is about. There's still a way to walk yourself through the woods when you're lost. And so that's what we're going to focus on a little bit with this item here. So let's read it. It says, the nurse is caring for a client who was just resuscitated following an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The client does not follow commands and remains comatose. What intervention does the nurse anticipate being added to the client's plan of care? So we have A, assisting the healthcare provider in discussing a do not resuscitate order with the family. B, obtaining equipment and cold fluids for induction of therapeutic hypothermia. C, placing a small bore nasogastric feeding tube for enteral nutrition. And D, planning for passive range of motion exercises to prevent contractures. So in this question, straightforward, it's asking us what intervention does the nurse anticipate being added to the client's care, So the ask is just, what are you going to do, right? So that's our ask. What are you going to do? And it gives us a lot of data here. It says that this client was just resuscitated following an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The client does not follow commands and remains comatose. Now remember, with every question, we always identify what we're being asked, and we want to take the data that the question's giving us because that helps us to figure out, well, what is our problem? And we got to think about that. We got to start to apply our knowledge. So you know this person was resuscitated from an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and you know that this client does not follow commands or remains comatose. So right now, before even looking at any of the answer options, what are we thinking? This is where we have to start to, put our noggin to use. So the client's not following commands and they're still comatose. Thinking like a nurse, you're thinking there's some type of neuro problem going on, right? And that makes sense because we know that after cardiac arrest, or during and after really, you can have neurologic injury because of the decreased perfusion to the brain. So this sounds like we have a neuro problem going on. So in thinking about what do we want to do, we're looking for an answer option for a solution that's going to directly address this problem, right? And give us the outcome that we need. And addressing the problem means addressing that this person, this client, has a neurologic deficit. So if we look at each option now with kind of new eyes, right? Assisting the healthcare provider in discussing a do not resuscitate order with the family. Well, this doesn't directly address the issue, right? We know that there might be some type of neuro injury that the client has sustained. That by no means we have to start talking about end of life, right? B says obtaining equipment and cold fluids for induction of therapeutic hypothermia. Okay, so we want to make the person really cold. What's the purpose of that? So we know that we can do that to decrease metabolism, right? We know that we can do that because then it's going to decrease the demands that the brain is having. So that's actually a good thing. This can be helpful, so we'll leave it alone. C says placing a small bore nasogastric feeding tube for enteral nutrition. So let's start feeding the patient by NG tube. Okay, that could be helpful, but what does that have to do with the fact that the question's telling us they're resuscitated, but they have a neuro problem? So this isn't going to do anything for that issue, so we'll get rid of C. D says planning for passive range of motion exercises to prevent contractures. Again, not a bad thing. That's great. That's something that would be really beneficial to a client. But this client, we know, again, based off the data that we have, this person has a neuro injury following resuscitation. So what is D going to do for that? Nothing, right? So that leaves us with B. Now here's what I really want to show you. That we're able to eliminate A, C, and D simply by saying, what does that have to do with the problem? The problem is this person was resuscitated, but they're not following commands and they remain comatose. And we know that this means a neuro problem. So A, C, and D don't do anything to directly address a neuro injury. but B does. Now, even if you didn't know that therapeutic hypothermia was something that is used, it's part of a protocol that's often used following resuscitation, then still, by eliminating options that don't make sense, that don't have anything to directly do or align with the problem, we can get B. But for a knowledge point of view and kind of giving you that information, therapeutic hypothermia is something that is beneficial when someone has suffered a neurologic injury post resuscitation, during resuscitation. And so this is a therapeutic measure that's going to help to really decrease any further insult to the brain and decrease any further damage to the brain and help to preserve that to ultimately give the client the best outcome possible. So the correct answer here is B.